Hey, it's Chris with Implied Music, and I'm here with my good friend and old friend. She doesn't look very old, I know, Panina. And we're going to talk about songwriting today, especially her songwriting process and just, what it's like to be a younger songwriter now, which I have no idea about. That's our introduction. Did I miss anything?
No.
Okay. Be back in a minute. Okay, so we're back. So, Panina, how long have I known you? I need to tell these people this.
Since I could read.
Yes.
Because you said you wanted to only teach piano lessons to kids who could read.
I think you were around before that, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You've known me since I was like a baby.
Yes.
Really.
Right. I guess
yes.
I guess to be quite honest about that. Yeah, that's what I think about too. And it's been just remarkable to see your growth and development and the way you've changed, because no one is born a songwriter or a composer. And so I was hoping that you and I could talk today about your journey as a songwriter, as a composer, where you are now, kind of like what the perspective that you have is. So I guess, first of all, it would be great for us to know what's going on for you right now.
Yeah, I'm a Timara student, which is technology in music and related arts at Oberlin Conservatory. So I'm kind of focusing on like real-time techniques, electroacoustic music, and then I'm also minoring in music history.
Oberlin's a noted conservatory. Was it a top of your list, or like how did that work out for you? Yeah.
I would say, because of the Timara department. I applied for composition elsewhere, and I didn't want to study composition. I wanted to study like technology and music, which there's no other major like that I know of in the U.S.
That's a great point. So who's in the program with you? Like how big is the program, and who are the folks?
I would say there's like 30 kids in the major.
And the program is sort of nestled within I guess we just have to call Oberlin a conventional conservatory.
It's in the basement.
Oh, so your program's in the basement. I see.
No windows. They shoved us down there with the old pianos.
Who's the faculty there?
Tom Lopez, Ari Sue, Abby Aristi, Chris Povey, Jeremy Toussaint Baptiste.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Cool.
Eli Stein just got a job at Meta.
Okay.
Don't think I'm forgetting anyone.
And I would say that during the past couple of years, and I haven't seen you a lot over the past couple of years, but your trajectory as a composer and as a songwriter has moved more towards the unique electroacoustic approach that program has, and away from the I'm strumming a guitar and writing a song approach, right?
Yeah.
Is it okay if we rewind back to like your earliest songs? Because I remember really clearly you like wanting to sing like a
Neil Young
song, a Joni Mitchell song, or something that back in the day. So how did you get started with songs?
Well, I always, my dad sang music to me every night as a kid. Like,
crucial.
He sang like folk music, country music, and eventually I started singing along, and then I started harmonizing with him, and me and my two other sisters all shared a room. So we would like be singing like, 4-part harmony with him, like to old like Union songs. I don't know. I always wrote songs. It was just like a thing I did. And then I went to study cello at the Crowden School. And I was in this very strict, like basically conservatory environment for 9-year-olds. Right. And I was like practicing cello. I had private lessons. I played for 2 hours a day at school. Like, it was a lot. And it was a very small school. The culture there was very much like oddly enough, it was like, you're not cool if you don't listen to classical music. Like, if you are the concertmaster, you're at the head of the school. If you're in the back of the section, you're only friends with people in the back of the section. Like, it was just kind of like that.
The cool kids were like the first chair players.
Which means they like spent their days practicing violin all day and listening to Mozart while they did homework. Like, and that is not a normal environment for a 9-year-old,
right.
Exactly. So I kind of didn't really let on that I listened to pop music. Like, you weren't really supposed to. Of course, like, we were kids, but I was very embarrassed to be writing songs, and I would do it in secret.
So at that time when you were writing songs, this is something I know, you weren't just, playing guitar and playing cello and stuff. Basically songwriting it's poetry at some level, right?
Yeah.
So what was your process around the lyrics and stuff like that at that time?
I kind of wrote poetry.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like the first time I ever wrote a song that wasn't in secret. We were writing this school musical, so we basically recomposed all the music for The Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And I was writing Dorothy's song, the replacement for Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Wow.
It was like the first time when I could write a song and like write lyrics and not be embarrassed, because it was like actually like homework. And everyone loved the song, and I was so proud of myself. And I realized I could write songs for musicals.
Yes. Well, I remember my songwriting teacher really separating songwriting into categories. Musicals is its own category. Writing songs as kind of like a, journeyman writer where you're writing for someone else is its own category. And then I think of you now, or at least, over the course of the 5 or 6 years that we worked together very, very closely, as being essentially an artist songwriter.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always, I've always kind of
When did that start?
I don't really know. I've always like kind of written things from a very personal standpoint. Mm-hmm. Like even as like a young kid, like I would write songs about like my grandma dying. I don't know. Like it just kind of like is like naturally how I am as a composer or songwriter. Mm-hmm. I feel like I need to write songs in order to kind of understand my life. So that's where that really comes from. It's just like kind of necessity.
So is the songwriting technique that you found yourself using, say, as a freshman or junior in high school, different from what happened when you were a senior and things like that? So how did it change, I guess, is what I wonder.
So I remember as a freshman in high school, I was very focused on poetry.
Yes.
And at this point, I was like kind of slowing down practicing cello. Like I either could be a classical musician or I could be a songwriter. Right. They didn't overlap because that's just like how I was raised around these other kids that didn't think they could overlap. So
Do you think that's true now?
No.
You don't? Okay.
I'm definitely merging the two worlds now. But like, I went from that classical music school to like a giant public high school where it was like you were really a nerd if you played the cello.
Fully.
So I kind of had to like navigate between these two worlds. But in high school, I really started listening to like music that I had never listened to before. Like, I listened to like Radiohead when I was 14. I started getting into like PJ Harvey. I started listening to all kinds of things, really, like expanding my taste, listening to like old punk bands, like whatever my friends were listening to. I think that kind of opened up my perception of what you could do, like with songs that you write.
Lyrically and musically.
Musically. Making things sound abrasive, ugly, like just like sort of like the palette of, what does it mean to optimize your sound? Like, and when I was younger, I was taught like basically to make your sound as beautiful as possible, like the human voice, like a pure human voice. Like, and then, there were composers I was always attracted to, even as a kid, who totally pushed those boundaries, like Bartok, Shostakovich. I love those Russians. And, like, they make ugly shit sometimes, Yeah. Oh, and in 8th grade, I joined the John Adams Young Composers Program. Right. Which was huge for me also because I was starting to get exposure to new classical music. And I had this amazing teacher, Matthew Camille, who I am still friends with. And he really, like, had 13-year-olds discussing, like, Cornelius Cardew. Right. Like, that was really big for me. And I think that's a big reason why I'm studying electroacoustic music in college.
Yeah. Cool. Fascinating. So that must have had a big impact on the work, the last year of high school for you. And as you were, looking ahead to what your sort of post-high school work was going to be like, you really made a pretty strong effort to actually do a couple albums and EPs and stuff, right? And they're slightly different. So talk a little bit about what that was about and how that worked.
I started out like basically writing pop songs on guitar, like sad pop songs. And I recorded a bunch of those with you. And then And then I started making art songs, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So they were more, I was interested in like electronic music. Like I kind of wanted to make beats, which I never ended up doing, like here and there. But I wanted to make kind of like more pop music, but like the lyrics were always really dark. I was interested in like massive synth sounds in like, you know, junior, senior year. And I also had this like PJ Harvey influence.
There's a kind of I would say a synthesis or a hybridization of kind of all the things that you've talked about.
Totally.
There's the gritty elements. There's the lyrical vocalese, like there's some amazing vocal textures. And also like this sense of like a Americana almost. It sort of begins to
because I was raised on that. Yeah.
It's all in there kind of all at once.
I think a lot of the like, I've always been really attracted to like vocal harmonies and like the spirit of improvisation when creating harmonies and textures. And I think a lot of that comes from studying chamber music.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's super useful to have, to be able to play a couple tracks for people and to say, well, this was a turning point song.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Goodbye, Amy was. And then, Hear You Whistle.
Oh.
Hear You Whistle was also definitely a turning point song. And I wrote that in senior year. And then at that point, I was starting to record myself. Like, I think I might have recorded that over COVID.
I mean, you basically just, you get a microphone up in Logic and you record like 50 vocal tracks.
That's what I did, yeah.
And a wooden spoon and like you bang things.
No, yeah, totally. Performance-based for sure.
Performance-based.
I never download sample libraries. I never download like plugins. I don't even know how. Like... Literally, I don't. I mean, maybe I should, but
I'm not sure you have to. I think the greatest way to really get your sound is to, base it on essentially performance. Your composing and your performing become, in the recording process, very closely linked.
Yes. Electroacoustic music, like, I personally haven't figured out a way to perform the stuff I record live.
Yeah.
So I'm in this process now of sort of unifying the two practices so I can be flexible. I want to use country music. I want to use like Renaissance vocal music. I want to use that and then because that's what I do in my music. Like in my most recent album, Greatest of All Time, Goddesmen, like I'm using recordings of my Renaissance choir, of Gregorian chant, country music, like folk songs, and then combining them all together with field recordings. And sort of collaging them into songs. And that's what I want to do live, Right. And I haven't figured it out yet, but Max MSP is a great tool.
So who's doing this kind of work now? Who you like is a touchstone for you or a hero? So
like, Aaron Dillaway, who I'm like acquainted with. I've played a show with him before in Oberlin. He like lives there. And then Eddie Kwan. And she's an amazing violinist. She plays in the Chicago Art Ensemble. So, yeah, constantly inspired by people like that. So
we can't, obviously, I'd like to talk with you forever. And of course, we'll continue to talk over the next 50 years. But what have we forgotten to mention, I guess would be my question. Like
specific songs, maybe?
Yeah, I suppose. Let's, after we get offline, we'll just make a little playlist, maybe, and we'll drop stuff in. How's that sound?
Sure.
Cool. Part of the reason I love having guests on and what's delightful about, having Panina here is, as, kind of an older musician and as a teacher, I don't always know what the hell's going on with my students, even when I'm working with them for years. And I will say that with a lot of your material, you and I would be like this. I'd be like, you can't do that, or what are you doing? And she'd say, no, this is the way it's going to go. And no, trust me, it'll be. And there are a million ways to skin the cat, if the cat will excuse the expression. And I'm thrilled to watch somebody an artist of your caliber grow and change and find a path through like what's just a giant thicket of possibilities, right? You don't know what you're going to do, and yet here you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been very like intuition based.
Yeah, and why not, right? And yet at the same time, there's this kind of like stubborn persistence. You've gotten great training, but you've often bridled against the conventions, and you found a path that is uniquely your own. Yay. And I think that we can, if I was going to say one thing to, if you made it this far into the video, this is the approach. That there's not one way to do it. In fact, there probably shouldn't be one way to do it. Listen, I hope this has, it would suck, wouldn't it, if there was just one way to do it? I hope this has been useful. If you like this, subscribe to the channel. We try to do this all the time. We'll put links for Penina's albums and just, artist pages and stuff down in the description. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you.